Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. We are fortunate to have Mr. Victor Chin from SharpSpring joining us today. SharpSpring carries the reputation of being a reliable marketing automation provider with more than 10,000 businesses and 2,000 digital agencies chose SharpSpring for their marketing automation. It is a broad solution covering lead management to CRM integration to social media management. Now let's welcome Mr. Victor to the mic to provide us with more details about marketing automation. Over to you, Victor.
Hey, thanks, Olivia. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. Basically from SharpSpring, AXP is the ASEAN country partner for the marketing automation solution. Myself, I've spent about a decade in digital marketing businesses, scaling them, selling them as well for acquisitions and whatnot. And most recently, I've also been involved in two digital startups, which is 99.co, that's an internet property portal firm, and also Joby Peanut Butter as well, which we sell peanut butter primarily online. Now, next, let's get into the meat of the presentation itself for everyone who's going into this. We like to always qualify on what we mean by when we tell you that we can help you reduce your marketing costs with absolutely no increase in marketing spend. Yeah, if you look at it, the strategy will work if you are achieving either average metrics or below average, right? When I say metrics, what we're talking about, if you run digital ads, this could be cost per click, click-through rate, cost per impression, right? So those are the ones that are familiar if you're spending some digital marketing ads today. For those who are not spending on ads, right, you probably do emails. So this one would refer to your open click-through rates. And for those who don't even do that, you probably have a website, right? You've got your website bounce rates, visits. And lastly, for those who do not even have any digital footprint, then we're talking about lead qualification rates, what's your conversion ratios, your closure rates. These are the things that we're talking about, okay? Now, but of course, at the end of the day, the foundation must be strong. You've got to have a good product, process, or team. If not, whatever strategy that we're going to give you and share today, that's not going to work. And all of this is actually based on AXP's sharing, which we have worked with over 100+ clients, right? With more than, in our case, it was more than a million digital ad spend. So there's always something better. If you all want to share in the Q&A session, feel free to just put it in the group chat and the follow-up session later on, okay? So let's look at the next slide. Now, I thought it was important to actually understand a little bit why we need to take action today when we say invest in digital. A lot of times, I think what we're seeing today is reactionary measures. We're in this COVID situation, then we're taking that action. But I think when we talk about investment into digital, it's a long-term thing. Okay, why do I say long-term? It's because if you look at the slide, right, this is something that's shared by Bain, as a research firm, right, consultancy firm. Those companies who actually invest during a recession and they experience growth, right, post-recession, they actually see it overtaking their growth and winning over the competitors. So if you can see, the difference is actually quite stark between the winners and losers. Whatever investment that is placed on a recessionary period usually would manifest multiple folds many years thereafter. So it's like an opportunity to sort of upgrade your game right now, or even take market share if I would risk it that way. So let's look at some of the characteristics between what we term as the winners and losers in the next slide. Now, the two groups that we can position here, when we talk about losers, what kind of characteristics do they exhibit, right? I think this is in no way to put down anybody who's in this situation, but it's just that a lot of times we're overwhelmed, right? We respond by cutting costs, they are unable to communicate the value, and their product or service becomes nice to have, which means no revenues, no profit margins to sustain the business. Now, when we look at the winners, right, the opposite end, of course, but what do we mean by the opposite end, right? During this time, they become a trusted partner. They still deliver results to the clients or the customers, and they prove their value of their brand, right? And what's interesting here is that they up their communication by more than 10x. When I say more than 10x, this could be in the form of PR, could be from ads, right? There's just so many other ways which you can communicate with your clients today. And why do so? It's very simple. You expand the existing relationship and also reach the new audiences, which you traditionally would not be able to do. And finally, with all that, positioning yourself as a must-have product to your users, your customers. So that is a little bit of a refresher of why I think it's actually important to invest into something like a digital marketing automation tool, right? Now, let's look at some of the strategies that allow you to turbocharge your marketing in terms of digital end, right? And why would a marketing automation tool like SharpSpring help in this situation? Now, it's not only limited to SharpSpring. Any marketing automation tool that you can find out there will be able to help you in these few areas. But we want to share 5 tips today so that you can take a few of them and then implement it into your businesses immediately, right? So of all the 5 strategies that we're outlining today, the first one I want to start off with is actually attracting your leads, okay? So we have to attract people's attention first before they can do anything. So this is what we call awareness, right? Now, a lot of people, they just put on ads outside without ever planning where that sales funnel or stage is. For those who are not familiar of what the sales funnel or marketing funnel is, it's basically what stage of buying behavior is your customer or potential customer exhibiting. Now, this is an example of a stage, right? You can do your own one. But if you see from the top of the funnel, that's what we call it tofu, right? We start with awareness. They know about your product, they learn about your product, and then we go all the way down to taking an action, which is they make a sale, you know, or they call you up, and finally loyalty, where they become your repeat customer. Now, what is important to know here, besides just planning the funnel, when we say attracting your leads, is that we have to attract them with the right content at the right stage. So if you see on the right-hand side, there's a few examples of what can work for a specific stage and doesn't work for any other stage, right? If we look at awareness on top, the purple color one, right? You see we've got infographics, we've got ads, we've got videos, articles, right? All of this does not translate into an actual sale itself, right? And if you look at down on the end, on the green line, right, you've got email onboarding, phone consultation. Those are more one-to-one kind of approach. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you just put an ad out without considering which stage they're in, you won't be able to get their attention for a very long time, right? In fact, they may not be even of interest to you. So map it out correctly, and that will form a good basis of how you bring in them as a customer. Now, there are a few things to take note when we say attracting your leads and mapping their behavior to the content correctly. So let's look at the next slide. So the first thing is really figure out which stage you're at. Every business has a different stage. Every customer, they focus because of limited resource is, what do you call this? We're limited in terms of our approach that we can take, right? Unless you have a huge marketing budget, then you can just blast ads all day long, okay? So, but even if you're putting the ads, you need to know which stage they're in. So try and map the content to the buying behavior as much as possible, and then focus really key onto that stage itself. And I like to mention also what we call the KISS principle, which is keep it simple, stupid, right? You make it very easy to understand, point forms, and then as short as possible. Now, I have to qualify that this may not work for every client. So for example, industries which require more explanation, maybe it's better done through a video or whatnot. So you have to understand your customer. And later on, we'll also explain a little bit how you can understand your customers, right? Now, let's look at the next slide, right? After you attract them, what do you do with them? I mean, they are at your front door, they're your website, or they're looking at your ads. Now, very important thing is actually knowing and understanding your customer. A lot of times when we say understanding your customer, people think it's my customer profile, that's about it, right? What is their age and all this. Now, this doesn't tell you actually a lot about their buying behavior. What's more important today in digital is the interaction behavior. Why? Because the interaction behavior actually gives you an insight into what is their future buying behavior. Right? Remember, past purchase behavior does not equal future behavior as well, right? Now, in this example, because all of these things are online today, whether it's your website, forms, emails, PDF, videos, right, that they interact with your online assets today, you should actually consolidate it into a single profile behavior. Now, a lot of times today, you may be doing some or more of them, but you won't be actually able to consolidate to a single profile. Now, this is where a tool like marketing automation will be able to help you to find out what your customers are actually doing. Okay. Now, let's look at an example how this looks like in a system like ours, right? So, for example, Alice. This is what we call the life of the lead, where every single interaction, whether it's the email she opened, the social media post she's interacted with, or a file that she's downloaded, every single thing is mapped to their profile. So within this whole profile, the idea is not to stalk your customers, right? You don't call them up and say, hi, I saw you looking at our website. No, now that you have the ability to do it, the whole idea is for marketers to segment them by behavior. What do I mean segment by behavior? Very simple. Today, if I were to ask you, can you give me a list of potential customers or your customers who have gone into your website in the past 7 days, opened a specific email, and looked at a specific product? It's probably very hard for you to do so. But if you've got a tool like marketing automation that helps you track all this, you can actually segment out and then query. That list will come out instantly. So then what you want to do with the campaigns or sales, that's really up to you. So now that we understand our customer, what do we actually do with them? Which brings us to the next slide in terms of prioritization. Now, because digital is so scalable, you can instantly, with the right strategy or the right ad budgets, you can instantly get hundreds or even thousands of inquiries or website visitors, right? So in terms of prioritizing your leads, once we understand our customers, we can look at the next slide on how a system that has marketing automation will help, right? Now, in this example, I've got a list of customers who have probably put in an inquiry on the website, right? Now, this works even if they're on e-commerce as well. Because I'm able to do the prior step, which is understanding and tracking the customer behavior, right? I can actually use the system to score them, help me prioritize. And how is the score computed? Very simple. Let's look at what it is. Now, if you can see it clearly, if not, then I'll explain. It's based on the completeness of the profile and also the interaction that they take. So in this example, I can actually see, hey, Andy here has actually filled up a couple of forms, and he's a very heavy email user. That's why his score is actually higher. Now, instead of traditionally, if I've got 10 leads, I need to go through one of them, each and every one of them, maybe by recency. Now I don't. I can ask the system, help me prioritize which ones based on the hottest behavior. And then now I have a list of people who are in a hot lead, cold lead, and warm lead. Now in this example, when we see SharpSpring, right, 250 is a red color score, while 43 on the bottom is actually an orange score. So they can even color codify it for you, right? So that is in terms of prioritizing our customer. Now, once we get all these customers in, we understand the data, we know who's important, how do you connect with them? And that brings us to the next slide, which is engaging with your leads. Now, in this age, when we need to engage with our leads, we have to understand our customers, right? But the problem is, if you've got a lot of clients, or if they're not reaching out to you, how do you personalize your engagement with them? So in marketing automation tools like ours, we have what we call dynamic personalization of the content. And in the next slide, I'll show you, give you an example how it works, right? Now, if I have a generic person, right, that is sending out an email to everyone, I've got this BMW experience email that sends it out, okay? Now, because I can track all the interaction of these customers and their behavior, a person that exhibits the behavior of a 3 series a customer, right? You know, when they click on that email, instantly they will be shown a 3 series content. Now, the same person clicking on that same email, right, and then going to the same URL, if he exhibits a 7 series behavior, it will change it in real time to 7 series information. Now, a lot of you can actually see all this in action today. For example, if you go to the AirAsia website, once you come in, you know, maybe your previous flight history is there, based on what you browse, what you click. Sometimes, you know, when you click on a certain ad, the ad follows you throughout certain pages, right? Those are the things in place today. So, you know, some of you may even ask, oh, I use an email marketing tool and they can do the same as well. Sure, but this doesn't happen on your web page, right? So a marketing automation tool like this actually allows you to do mass personalization in letting the system decide what to show, who to show, and when to show it to, right? You just need to set the rules in place, and that's all. So now then, let's look at the next slide. I do understand there are some couple of questions in the chat group. We'll address them later, yeah? Once we have their attention, you know, we can prioritize them, we personalize our behavior with them, then we talk about following up with your leads, right? I think this is the least sexiest stuff to do, whether it's for marketing and sales. And a lot of times we focus on the hot ones. Why? Because it's a quick and fast sale compared to someone who may not be able to purchase now or may not be ready. They need time to nurture that interest, right? So let's look at an example of how this is done with a tool and without a tool, right? Now, in this example, right, I'm going to explain this workflow and you see if it makes sense. I'm pretty sure a lot of you may face this kind of issues. Now, a prospect, right, or a customer submits a form on your website, and then you wait 3 days. You can download the brochure and then let the system check, can they download, have they downloaded a brochure? If they did, send them a thank you notification. If they did not, send them a reminder email. From the reminder email, wait 7 days, check, did they visit the website or not? Now, if they did visit the website, we send an invitation on a preview day. If we did not, we send a preview of the event that day. Now, this whole thing, right, although it's very simple, the question is, if you were to leave it to your staff, right, whether it's your marketing team or your sales team to do it, how often and how are you sure that they will actually follow up with the customer as per your process? So instead of having a person to do it, right, you've got a system to do it for you. And the difference here, depending on what you're using, you may say, oh, I'm using an email marketing tool like MailChimp, right? And I can automate these emails. But let me point out to you a few differences in this one simple flow that marketing automation tool gives you. This whole thing here, we are dealing with at least 4 channels, 4 separate channels in one workflow. The first one is the form, when they start download the form, right? Second is a file download of the brochure. Third is the email notifications. Fourth is the website itself. And this is coupled with logic bills, you know, the logic deduction and the wait time delays. So if you're going to do this manually, it's going to be very, very hard. But if you've got a tool to help you automate all of this, then you can focus on all the hot leads first and then let the system work up those cold leads and warm leads to the hot one. And when the hot ones are there, let the system notify you immediately, right? So this is one example. Yeah. Let's head on to the next slide. Now, we just want to keep it very simple today because actually in the marketing automation tools, there's a lot of functionalities inside. But from my experience, right, getting just the first 3 steps done will actually let you see a 10 to 20% increase in your marketing conversion or sales conversion results. So let me just recap, yeah? 5 strategies to take over today, and I'll point out to you which one, if you forget everything, you should just remember which 2, okay? So number 1, attracting your leads, right? Make sure you put the right content, map it to the right stage, and your chances of getting their attention will be higher. Second, knowing your leads. Understand their customer behavior, right? Third, once you understand them, prioritize them, because not everybody warrants your attention at this point in time. And fourth, engage with them with personalized content, right? If you can't do it with a system, do it manually, it's fine. And lastly, follow up with your leads constantly. If you can't deal with them all by yourself, put in a tool in this case. Now, I promise I said the 2 things that's important, right? It's number 2 and number 3, which is tracking your customer and then prioritizing their behavior. So for those 2, why I point those 2 out is because a lot of tools today, including SharpSpring. SharpSpring is just one of it, okay? You can use your other tools, which is different. Those tracking of behavior and prioritizing, everything is automated. So you don't need to do a single thing. All you have to do is put the tracking code in your websites, integrate some forms, your Facebook page and profile, and then let the system just track everything automatically from there on. When you are ready to take action, right, it can be 6 months, 1 year down the road, you already have the data in place. If you don't start 2 and 3, you can never go to the 4th, 5th, or whatever functionalities that you may want to automate. So that's my sharing for today. I'll pass it back to Olivia.
Okay, thank you, Victor, for taking the time to share your knowledge with us. So next up, I actually have a couple of common questions that need your answers.
Sure.
So I'll just start off with, when should a business actually start implementing marketing automation? Is it ever too late for them to start?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever too late, right? Better late than never. And for those businesses which are only hearing it for the first time today, my advice is actually get started as soon as you can, whether you can afford it, right? I mean, importantly, as soon as you can afford it, actually, because it actually takes time to collect that data. If you're not, let's say, a website or a business which have a lot of existing customers, so you may say, oh, I will implement it next year. But actually, you need to plan, if let's say next year, January, 3 months before that date, because you need that time to collect that data. Yeah.
Okay, so if let's say I'm convinced, what are the basic and most important features of a marketing automation platform that we should look out for?
Right. So this is very in line with what I just mentioned at the end, the 2 key takeaways, which is it's all about customer behavior tracking, right? Because once you have that data, it's unlimited in terms of how you want to use it and how you want to do it, right? But if you don't have that data, whatever strategies you have in place, that's not going to work, okay? So I would say all those other functionalities, personalization, follow-up, workflows, they're all good. They're all very advanced, right? But put the foundation in place, which is have the customer tracking. And then once you have the customer tracking, the lead scoring comes in hand without you needing to do anything at all. Yeah. So those would be the 2 items that I would focus on when you're considering a marketing automation tool.
Okay, what about companies that wants to make a change? Is it simple for them to migrate an old system to a new one? And how quick is the implementation process?
Right. I'll set some qualifiers here. It depends on the system that you're coming from, okay? If you're using an enterprise system and you're changing into something more modern today, that might be slightly easier because you've already got the customer database. But if you have nothing in place and you're moving to marketing automation, it's actually pretty simple. All you have to do is make sure you've got a database of clients. If you don't have a database of clients, just connect your websites and Facebook profiles, all those kind of things. And then you can get started almost immediately.
Okay, final question here. Based on your experience, which industries would benefit the most from using marketing automation?
Right. From our experience, especially working with Asian companies, particularly in Malaysia and Singapore, I would say those with a heavy e-commerce or digital footprint would be best, which means those who have website, Facebook, or they're advertising heavily on paid advertising, right? That would be the first one. Second one, I would think is education. So when I say education, it's like training services, college, universities, mainly because the customers are very tech savvy. And that's where you actually find them because they're already interacting with the digital front. The traceability and tracking is much more easier. Third, I would like to say probably any business that has a digital footprint and a huge lifetime value, right? Which means per transaction, if just getting one customer is equivalent or more of your marketing cost, this is something that you should consider heavily.
Okay, thank you, Victor. So before we end today's session, do you have any final thoughts or advice that you would like to share with us?
Well, it's going to be the same as what I mentioned earlier, right? Which is if anyone can afford it as soon as possible, put something in place that can help you automate your marketing operations because I think especially moving forward, digital will be the forefront. I think everybody knows that. However, I don't think the right foundation is being put in place. A lot of reactionary measures before you even consider your websites and all these kind of things. Try and put in a foundation of those tracking behind it, and then implement those front end items. That would be my advice here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Victor. So if you're interested to be featured as one of our guest speakers, feel free to drop us a line or give us a call. The objective of this webinar series is actually to provide a convenient and safe space for all industry experts to share their knowledge. So next week, we will be welcoming our guest speakers from Premier Pay Solutions and Ableton. So if you're thinking of moving your business online, you have to attend this webinar because we will be discussing e-commerce. SEO and payment gateway are both key components of a functional e-commerce website. So both of our guest speakers are actually experts in this field. So do join us next week on the 4th of May. It will be a Monday. I repeat myself, 4th of May at 3 p.m. for an introduction to e-commerce, SEO, and online payment gateways. Thank you, everyone, and stay safe.